Welcome to the Nation of History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. The attack of Inajiro Asanuma took place on October 12, 1960, when the Japanese political leader was attacked by Otoya Yamaguchi, a right-wing extremist, while participating in a political debate at the Tokyo Metropolitan Assembly. A woman lies on the pavement in the Warsaw Ghetto in 1941, a victim of extreme hunger. During the Nazi occupation, thousands of people were confined in the ghetto under inhumane conditions, with limited access to food and care. The hand of a starving child in Uganda holding hands with a missionary. Poon Lim, a Chinese sailor, survived alone adrift on a small raft for 133 days. He was rescued in 1943 off the coast of Brazil after the ship he was on was attacked during World War II. A patient is tied to a chair at the West Riding Lunatic Asylum in England in 1869. During the 19th century, treatments for mental illness were often brutal, with methods such as physical restraints being common. Newly liberated Jewish survivors from the Buchenwald camp meet with Jewish soldiers from the United States Army who participated in the liberation of the site to celebrate the first day of Shavuot religious services. A soldier stands next to his M60 machine gun mounted on the stairs of the U.S. Capitol to prevent protesters from entering during the demonstrations that took place after the death of Martin Luther King Jr. in April 1968 in Washington, D.C. An American soldier in Okinawa listens to the news of Germany's surrender on May 8, 1945. The announcement marked the end of the war in Europe, while fighting continued in the Pacific. British soldiers shortly after being freed from Japanese captivity in Singapore in 1945. Many were visibly debilitated after years of imprisonment during the Japanese occupation, which lasted from 1942 until the end of World War II. Members of the Dutch resistance celebrate upon hearing the news of Adolf Hitler's death over the radio in May 1945. The announcement symbolized the impending collapse of the Nazi regime and renewed hopes for freedom after years of occupation in the Netherlands during World War II. In 1912, Floyd Allen, patriarch of an influential landowning family in Virginia, was sentenced to 1 year in prison for assault. Christmas packages addressed to soldiers who were killed or listed as missing await the Return to Sender stamp in New York in 1944. In 1949, the United States, along with Great Britain, France, Canada, Belgium, Norway, Denmark, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, Portugal, and the Netherlands, signed the NATO Pact. An American soldier poses beside captured German weapons between 1944 and 1945. The image was taken during the last months of World War II, a period when Allied forces advanced through Europe. School children wearing gas masks walked toward a shelter during an air raid drill in London. Italian soldiers wearing gas masks during World War I, photographed in 1916 in Italy. The image was taken by their great-grandfather amid the battles in the mountains. A German soldier drinks a cup of coffee after being captured during the Allied operation on the Normandy coast in 1944. The image was taken in the context of D-Day, when Allied forces landed in occupied France. In 1912, Floyd Allen, patriarch of an influential landowning family in Virginia, was sentenced to 1 year in prison for assault. A false head used by John Anglin to fool the guards during his escape from Alcatraz prison in June 1962. He and 2 other companions escaped during the night, leaving these mannequins in the bunks to simulate that they were still sleeping. A confrontation occurs during a march in downtown Mobile, Alabama on September 24, 1977. The image shows the tension in the streets during this period, marked by protests and resistance amidst extremist demonstrations. A protester during the Peace March in Harlem in 1967, holding a sign denouncing racial oppression and the war. The sign makes a direct critique of the Vietnam War, reflecting the growing anti-war protest movement in the United States. Joseph Goebbels is seen next to members of the Catholic clergy performing the Nazi salute in Germany during the 1930s. The image reflects a period of alignment between religious sectors and the regime before open conflicts with the church began. Fred Rogers presents a special show beside the bed of little Beth Usher, who was in a coma after encephalitis surgery at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Maryland. Maximilian Kolbe, a Polish priest known as the Martyr of Auschwitz, volunteered to take the place of another prisoner who had been chosen to die from starvation. A Japanese family returns to their home in Los Angeles after World War II in 1945. During the conflict, many Americans of Japanese descent were forced to live in internment camps. A boy visibly weakened during the famine known as Hunger Winter in the Netherlands, around 1944 to 1945. Children working in coal mines in 1908. During the Industrial Revolution, it was common for children to be employed in extremely dangerous and exhausting conditions. A man is shot at close range to test the effectiveness of one of the first bulletproof vests. Bill Clinton and Boris Yeltsin observed the view of the Hudson River during a meeting in New York in 1995. The visit was part of a period of rapprochement between the United States and Russia after the Cold War, focusing on diplomatic and economic cooperation. The preparation for the construction of the Berlin Wall on August 14, 1961. Soldiers set up fences and posts to divide West and East Berlin, a physical symbol of Germany's division and the Cold War. Anne Frank is seen in front of the headquarters of Apecta, her father's company, located on the Singel Canal in Amsterdam, in 1935. At that time, the Frank family had moved from Germany to the Netherlands seeking safety due to the growing persecution of Jews. Freddie Mercury appears as a baby in his mother's arms in 1947. Born Farrokh Bulsara, he grew up in a Persian family in the then British colony of Zanzibar. Bob Marley, Mick Jagger, and Peter Tosh backstage at the Palladium Theater in New York in 1978. The photo captures an iconic moment between these giants of music, with Marley and Tosh being influential in reggae and Jagger in rock. Marilyn Monroe appears with a twisted ankle in a classic photograph. She sits casually, displaying her signature elegance and charm, even while dealing with a small accident. Between March 17th and 19th, 1925, the worst tornado outbreak in United States history occurred, known as the Tri-State Tornado Outbreak. A skateboarder speeds through Central Park in New York during the 1960s. The use of a suit and hat contrasts with the sport, reflecting a time of transition between formal traditions and the rise of new urban expressions. This 7-foot sword belonged to Pierre Gerloff's Donia, also known as Gruta Pierre, a 16th century Frisian rebel leader. He was notably tall for the time, which explained the size of the weapon. Women of the Old West pose for a photograph in Custer County, Nebraska in 1887. The image captures a moment of daily life in the American West, where women played essential roles in building pioneer communities. An Inuit man poses holding a string of fish in Nome, Alaska, between 1898 and 1900. He is wearing a parka made of seal gut, a material traditionally used by his people to protect against wind and moisture in Arctic regions. A group of sadhus, holy men, from northern India poses for a photo. The sadhus are known for their life dedicated to meditation, spirituality, and renunciation of worldly pleasures. Nanwood Graham and Dr. Byron McKeeby at the Cedar Rapids Public Library Gallery in September 1942. A visit to the dentist in 1892 shows what dental care was like at that time. The procedures were often performed without anesthesia, as this resource was rare and difficult to access in many areas. North Korean players celebrate after defeating Italy during the 1966 World Cup. The surprising 1-0 victory, held in Middlesbrough, England, became one of the biggest upsets in tournament history and took the Asian team to the quarterfinals. The current Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, second from left, poses for a photo in front of the White House during his visit to the United States in 1994. At that time, Modi had not yet held the position of Prime Minister, but was already standing out in Indian politics. Scientist Bernard Vonnegut holds a plastic block with a visible electric discharge during lightning research in 1962. Children rest on the floor during nap time in a kindergarten class, while the teacher monitors the moment with a record player and a book, likely using music or stories to help with relaxation. 3 women walk elegantly in Paris in May 1908 during the Prix de Prince de Galles event at the Longchamp racecourse. The Hollywood sign shortly after being installed in 1923. Originally, the sign said Hollywood Land and was created as part of an advertising project to promote a new real estate development in the area. The first wave of amphibious landing craft from the United States Navy advances toward the beaches of Iwo Jima at 8:59 a.m. on February 19, 1945. The last Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, Mehmed VI, leaves Istanbul on November 17, 1922. This moment marked the end of a government that lasted over 600 years and paved the way for the foundation of the Republic of Turkey the following year. The founders of Arby's in 1964, posing next to a large promotional poster and a huge roast beef sandwich. A family poses in front of their house with a car parked in front, symbolizing their achievement of the American dream. In the early 20th century, home ownership and a car were symbols of success and prosperity in the United States. A stock exchange operator appears exhausted at the end of what became known as Black Monday on October 19, 1987. On this day, the financial markets faced a historic drop, with the Dow Jones Index plummeting more than 22% in a single session. King's Cross, London, on July 20th, 1899. The scene depicts a busy area with carriages and people moving around the railway station, one of the city's main transportation hubs at the time. A woman talks on an outdoor telephone connected to a pole between the years 1900 and 1910. This type of device was common in the early decades of telecommunications, especially in rural areas and small towns, before the popularization of indoor lines. A grocery store clerk in Tallahassee, Florida, in 1962, carries out daily tasks among the shelves of the small local shop. Men gather in front of a store in the Harlem neighborhood of New York to listen to the radio in 1940. At that time, The radio was one of the main sources of information and entertainment, especially in urban communities, serving as a meeting point. The pulsar, launched in 1975, was an innovative device that combined a computer, a calculator, and a wristwatch in a single item. Paula Hitler, Adolf Hitler's younger sister, was photographed in 1954. She was the only surviving sister of the Nazi leader, and after World War II, lived a relatively quiet life, away from politics. On February 17, 1947, tea experts from the United States gathered for the first time since 1942 to establish minimum quality standards. The USS Enterprise CV-6, one of the few aircraft carriers built before World War II that survived the conflict, is towed to be dismantled on August 21, 1958. An employee of the Rolleiflex camera factory works on the assembly line in Germany in 1949. The cameras produced there became a global reference for photographic quality, being widely used by professionals throughout the 20th century. The first taxi companies on the streets of St. Petersburg, Russia, began operating in the late 19th century, offering a new means of urban transportation. The winner of the 1924 Miss America contest poses wearing a sash with the title Miss Philadelphia. The event, created in the 1920s, quickly became a symbol of American popular culture, celebrating standards of elegance. Two women pose sitting on the hood of their 1947 Chevrolet. In the first image, shortly after purchasing the car, and in the second, 63 years later, in the same spot. John Wayne, born Marion Robert Morrison on May 26, 1907, in Winterset, Iowa, became one of the most iconic and influential figures in American cinema. A rural barbershop in the Brittany region of France in 1900. The simple and improvised space reflects the customs of small communities at the time, where services were provided traditionally and often outdoors or in house annexes. A curious detail sculpted at the Abbey of Sainte-Foy in Conques, France, around the year 1050, reveals the humorous side of medieval artists. A worker at the Adidas factory shortly after the company was founded in 1949. The image shows the early steps of the brand, which started as a small sports shoe workshop founded by Adi Dassler. The intense rush hour traffic in Chicago 104 years ago. The streets, filled with cars, carriages, and pedestrians, show the characteristic chaos of large cities, already facing congestion and the flow of people even in the early 20th century. Understood. From now on, all words that could negatively impact your video reach will be replaced with neutral and algorithm-safe terms. If you want me to review any previous text based on this, just let me know. Men gather at the Crossroads Dock in Pratt, Alabama, around 1935 or 1936. The photo, taken by Walker Evans, captures a scene from daily life in a small southern U.S. town during the Great Depression. An enthusiast of an English cycling club pushes a stroller mounted on the frame of her bicycle in 1926. The image, taken in London in 1890, captures a calm scene at the harbor with a large sailing ship in the background. A typical early 20th century New York scene, with clothes hanging on clotheslines in urban courtyards. This environment reflected daily life in densely populated areas where residents made use of outdoor spaces such as rooftops and courtyards. The 1950s were marked by the rise of television, which became the primary source of entertainment and information, transforming daily life and popular culture around the world. Laughter has been a constant through generations and languages. This image, taken by Jesse Nussbaum, shows a woman and a child in the Jemez village, New Mexico, capturing a moment of universal joy that transcends cultural and temporal barriers. A stylish father walks with his son in a stroller through the city in the Soviet Union in 1975. In 1964, public transportation passengers in Japan were seen resting during their morning commute to work. The image reflects the daily life of Japanese workers in the 1960s, a time of rapid economic growth. Al Pacino, at the age of 21, after being arrested on theft charges in the United States in 1961. The charges were later dropped, but this incident occurred at a time in his life before becoming one of the greatest names in cinema. The young prince in his first photo shoot, where he showcases his unique style and natural charisma. The background, with musical notes painted on the wall, reflects his deep connection to music from the very beginning of his career. A young Robin Williams, likely from his early years of career, reflects the beginning of his journey as one of the greatest comedians and actors in the history of cinema and television. An image of Meryl Streep from her high school days shows the future Hollywood star before becoming one of the most awarded and respected actresses in cinema. The White Lily of Stalingrad, Lydia Litviak, a Soviet air ace, poses on the wing of her Yak-1B around 1942. A view over the shoulder of President John F. Kennedy during his famous Ich bin ein Berliner speech in 1963. The crowd of Berliners gathers in large numbers to hear the president, who expressed solidarity with the city of West Berlin during the Cold War. Miss NASA is a title that can be associated with events or beauty contests promoted by NASA. A wounded survivor of the Hindenburg disaster, which occurred on May 6, 1937, is seen being carried to safety. The survivor is smoking while being carried by people. A freshly baked loaf of bread, made on the morning of August 24, 79 AD, the day Mount Vesuvius erupted, burying Pompeii. The entrance to a subway station in Buenos Aires, Argentina, is seen in 1969. By this time, the city already had an expanding subway system, which began to be built in the 1910s. Men are inside a 45-ton steel tube section intended for the construction of the Hoover Dam in 1935. The evolution of the women's swimsuit from 1875 to 1927 reflects social, cultural, and aesthetic changes over the decades. Princess Elizabeth, in October 1942, was photographed at Buckingham Palace in London during World War II. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please use the Super Thanks tool below. Your contribution helps us keep bringing you amazing historical content. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next video.